Let's Talk is on Trust and Inspire with Stephen M.R. Covey. My name is Lan Fan. I'm the CEO and founder of Community of Seven. For those who are new to Community of Seven, there is one singular goal of these talks. It's to create an environment where you can come as you authentically are, where you are accepted, and where you can have deep, meaningful conversations with other purpose-led leaders to talk about what matters most to you. We do these calls bi-weekly, and this is a special edition one with Stephen because his book Trust and Inspire is out. Please go get it. I put the link from Amazon. The hard book copy is beautiful. Please get it. Make sure if you do buy the book as well that you also comment. That's one way you can really support writers and authors. For the next activity, top right hand side, put this on gallery mode. For those who, once again, are new to Let's Talk, we always start our calls with a series of questions. You're going to raise both hands like this if the answer is yes. If you are on live stream, in the comments, I want you to just type out yes, or you can use the raise your hand emoticon as well, okay? If the answer is yes. So raise both hands like this if you agree. How many of you feel that there's a declining trust in our society? How many of you feel that there's declining trust at work and for corporate leadership? How many feel there's declining trust for governments and politicians? Last question, how many feel that trust is an integral part of corporate culture and society in general? Amen. We definitely need more of this, right? And I think this is why this conversation is so timely and why I'm so excited to have Stephen here. He originally wrote his book, Speed of Trust, in 2006, and it's so relevant now. And so I'm so excited that Trust and Inspire is out. As I mentioned, we have Stephen M.R. Covey here today, and both he and his father, Stephen R. Covey Sr., have really guided my philosophy on leadership for over 20 years. My brother Van gifted me Stephen R. Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, when I graduated from Stanford. I was still in education at the time, looking to get into education reform, but having no clue where to start and having really no clue about leadership. But that book was a game changer for me. Fast forward over a decade, I moved on from education, but became a serial entrepreneur and finally entered the corporate world of marketing and advertising. I had become really jaded with the cutthroat, competitive world of agency life and corporate life and was about to quit. When I picked up Stephen M.R. Covey's The Speed of Trust, I couldn't put that book down. It was so different from all the other leadership books I had read. It was confirmation for me that one could be a leader and not have to compromise one's soul. It was confirmation that trusted leaders, or what I call servant leaders, could be effective and even excel in corporate America. It taught me that I had a place in corporate America, even though the authoritarian cultures that I had been around told me that I needed to lead from the front, not from behind, told me that I couldn't be kind and empathetic, that I couldn't show emotions, and that I couldn't be me. I was told that nice guys always finish last. And what I learned from the Covey family was that trusted leaders could not only survive, but thrive in corporate America. In fact, they could do better, be better, create profit for companies with the magical power of trust. They could be a force for good and a force for growth. Since then, I have gifted 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and The Speed of Trust, and now it's going to be Trust and Inspire to family and friends, for people who are on my team. This book is I hope you do purchase it. I put it in the Amazon link in the comments, but it's I got to read through it and it was so powerful. It's such a relevant book, especially with the great resignation happening right now. Millions of people have left their jobs. And one of the number one reasons why people have left their jobs is lack of leadership, lack of trust. The previous models of command and control just don't work anymore. You need to trust and inspire your teams. The book is out now, so please purchase it. And while you're at it, also purchase The Speed of Trust and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Those 3 books have been are going to be the centerpiece of my my leadership moving forward. They've changed my life, and I know it will do the same for you. So before I introduce our guest for today, in the chats, for those who are watching on live stream, I want you to answer it in the comments, but don't press send until I tell you. So start answering this question in the comments, but don't press send until I tell you. Answer in a sentence or two. Is trust important in leadership, and why? So in the comments or in the chat, is trust important in leadership, and why? I'm going to give you a second to answer that, and I'm going to count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, press send. Without trust, there's nothing, absolutely. No one follows a leader without trust. Trust is important because leaders guide companies. Trust is a necessity. Trust is a foundation for leadership. Employees need to feel trusted in order to do their jobs. Trust is always first. Trust is important because it's linked to psychological safety. Trust is important for collaboration. You need trust to be inspired. Thank you so much, guys. Trust is the glue. These are great. I love this. Trust creates an environment where people can excel. So, Stephen, you are definitely on the right page. You got a room full of people who agree with you right here. So, quick introduction. Stephen M.R. Covey is a New York Times best-selling author. He is #1 Wall Street Journal best-selling author of The Speed of Trust, and now Trust and Inspire. He brings to his writing the perspective of a practitioner. He's a former president and CEO of Covey Leadership Center, where he increased shareholder value by 67 times and grew the company to become the largest leadership development company in the world. A Harvard MBA, he co-founded and currently leads Franklin Covey's Global Speed of Trust practice. He serves on numerous boards, including the Government Leadership Advisory Council, and he's been recognized with a Lifetime Achievement Award for top thought leaders in trust from the advocacy group Trust Across America. He is a highly sought-after international speaker who has taught trust and leadership in 55 countries of business and government, military, education, health care, and NGO entities. Please welcome Stephen M.R. Covey. Woo! Hello, Stephen.
What a delight, what an honor to be here with you today. And I've already loved what you've talked about, Lan, and all the comments from everyone on trust and how it's truly foundational for everything else, everything we're trying to do. Clearly for relationships, but also for a team, for an organization, for collaboration, for innovation. It really is what makes our world go around. And I think that trust has become the new currency of our time, especially in a low trust world. So delighted to be with you, Lan, and with all of you here on this live event.
I love this. So, Stephen, I was going to ask you who inspired you to write Trust and Inspire, but you clearly stated in the first few pages, and you eloquently write, to my mother and father, Sandra and Stephen R. Covey, who modeled to me what it means to trust and inspire parents and leaders. So I'm going to ask you a different question, but related. How was it growing up in the Covey family? I can only imagine the dinner table conversations. What did you learn from your father, Stephen Covey, the leadership icon who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? But because probably everyone on this call and everyone watching probably has a copy. I think every leader has a copy. And what did you learn from your mother, Sandra? How did both their teachings inform your views on leadership and parenthood?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Lan. I learned, I was fortunate, blessed, lucky to have such amazing parents. Both my father and my mother. My father, who's better known, but my mother was every bit his equal in every way, and a force for good. So from my mother, I learned the importance of uh, of affirming people and believing in people. My mother made you feel like you could do anything, and she believed in you. She believed in her children, and she believed in those that she cared about, and she helped you come to believe in yourself. And that is tremendous leadership, is to communicate people's potential so clearly that they come to see it in themselves. And my mother did that beautifully with me and with my siblings, with all of us around us, with everyone she interacted with. And I'll give you this quick anecdote about my mother. She was a force for good in so many different ways, including in our community, where she loved the performing arts and the arts. And she felt like every community needed a performing arts center to celebrate the finer things in life. And she worked on this and brought it about over a 10 plus year period of time, when finally they created a performing arts center in our community. And when they debuted it, they named it the Sandra M. Covey Center for Performing Arts. And after my mother, because she was the driver that made it happen. Without her, it doesn't happen. So she did that. That was what she did at a public level. What she did in private was even better with her children and with friends and family and other folks around her, neighbors. So I learned immensely from my mother about affirming people, what that does to you. And from my father, for those that have read the 7 Habits, I learned the 7 Habits from my father, and we started in the home. In fact, us, because I came from a big family. There were 9 of us children, 9 siblings. So we were a case study. We were a pilot for all the 7 Habits right there in the home. But what I do remember is learning each of those 7 habits as separate, independent principles over the years. And it was only later that my father put them together into a framework.
Wow. So the 7 habits of effective leaders was first kind of your family rules, or not family rules, but your family guiding principles.
Absolutely. Like, we learned to be proactive. And this is before it was framed as habit 1, be proactive. It was just, we are in between what happens to us, and our response to it is a space, and we can choose our response. We're not just reactive, and we have the power to choose our own response. And we learned that independently of all 7 habits. And then similarly, we would learn about seek first to understand, then to be understood. That's habit 5. My father felt like that was maybe the most powerful principle of all, because of what empathy does to people when you really understand another person, and how we're in great need of this today. So each of the 7 habits, I can go through all 7. We learned individually, one at a time. It was only later my father began to see that there was power in a framework to make this accessible and practical to people. But so that's what it was like to grow up. I feel fortunate, blessed, but I also feel a sense of stewardship to make sure I continue down this path and try to add my piece to it, because I feel like I've been so abundantly blessed.
I love that. And I also love that he framed it in terms of habits, because people, sometimes growth and change seems so overwhelming for people, and they think it's these huge kind of transformations, but really it's the daily decisions that we make. It's our habits that create us, right? Our habits are chiseling who we are each day. And what I loved is he had these principles that were very simple, but they were so life changing. I know it literally changed my life, because I had graduated from college. I was kind of aimless, and I would just read it over and over again. And it was kind of like the guiding light for me. And it was easy because every day it was like, okay, is this reaffirming how I'm living my life? And because it became a habit, it just became kind of intuitive for me. So I love that.
Absolutely. The habit is the overlap of knowledge, skill, and desire. And all three of those components are important, that we want to do it, we know how to do it, and we're skilled in doing it. And and when you overlap that becomes a habit, and that's really powerful.
I love that. So, your book, The Speed of Trust, which was a game changer for me as well. So, I had read Seven Habits before I got into corporate. Then I went into corporate, and I was so jaded. And I read this, and I was like, it was such a breath of fresh air, and it was so different from what all the other leadership books were talking about. Um, and it really kind of proved that as leaders you can be force for good, but also a force for growth for companies, because I think that's important, right? It's not just about being nice and kind. You can actually be an effective leader. And this book sold over 2 million copies. Your current book, Trust and Inspire, what is kind of a natural extension of Speed of Trust. What sparked your interest to write this book, and why is this message important today?
Here's why I think this is so important. I'll give two approaches to it. The first is this, that the world has changed all around us. We're operating in a new world. We all know it, because of technology, disruption, because of the changing workforce, so much diversity, so many generations, as many as 5 at work, the changing workplace, work from home, work from anywhere, remote, hybrid, intentionally flexible work. The nature of choice has changed. We've gone from multiple choice to infinite choice. So all these forces of change have changed our whole world. The world has changed, and yet our style of leadership has not, or at least it's not kept pace. We're still operating too much. At least the prevailing style of leadership for most organizations still is rooted in the old model. And I call it command and control. What's happened, though, is we've become better at it, more advanced, more sophisticated. We've moved to a more enlightened command and control. But our paradigm of how we view people, how we view leadership is still too much rooted in the past around things, around efficiency, as opposed to around people and around inspiration. And so if the world has changed, a new world of work requires a new way to lead, rather than command and control, which doesn't work anymore, as if it ever really did, to move to trust and inspire. Because people don't want to be managed, they want to be led. They want to be trusted. They want to be inspired. So this is a new way to lead in a new world. That's kind of the main point. But I'll just share one little anecdote to illustrate how I see this. Before my father passed away, he and I did some workshops, some public programs together in different cities all around the world. And for over a year, we were together doing this, and it was amazing. And he would take most of the time, and I would take part of the time, talk about speed of trust. But he would always ask 2 questions. And sometimes there'd be an audience of 1,000 people, and he would ask this question: how many of you, and these would be, by the way, these would be executives, managers, leaders in audiences from all kinds of organizations, all kinds of industries. And he'd ask, how many of you believe that the vast majority of the people in your organization have far more talent, creativity, ability, ingenuity, and energy than their current job requires or even allows them to contribute? And almost every hand in the room would go up. People have a lot more that they can give. They're not able or allowed to give. And then he'd ask a follow-on question: and how many of you also believe that the vast majority of the organization is under far more pressure and intensity to produce more with less? And again, almost every hand would go up. And then it was just kind of like, let this settle in for a moment. We're all under more pressure to produce more with less, and yet we have far more to give than we're able to give or allowed to give. What's wrong with this picture? Our leadership approach is not unleashing the capabilities, the talent, the potential of what people have inside of them. And I love the expression by Gandhi. He said, the difference between what we are currently doing and what we are capable of doing would solve most of the world's problems. So this book, Trust and Inspire, is all about unleashing that greatness that people have inside of them, closing those gaps to help us solve our problems and achieve extraordinary possibilities for each of us.
I love that. I'm going to read some comments before I ask you your next question. We have some really good comments on the side. Tanya says many corporate decision makers in the C-suite have come from the military, at least in the US, and I'm sure that contributed to the command and control model of business for over 4 decades. David has a really great quote. My favorite boss so far would often say, I trust you. And he meant it. And it made our team want to live up to that trust. We thrived. And my let me see. And then Tanya also says, my mentor explained it this way. We managed things, but we people.
Absolutely.
Love
That
that.
to Tanya's point, see, command and control, you manage people and things. Trust and inspire, you manage things, you lead people. We need to be, see, I'm not here to bash management. We need good management. We also need good leadership. We need both. We need good management of things, of systems, of structures, of processes, of inventories, of finances, of the numbers. You manage the business. You manage things. You lead people. The moment we start to manage people as if they were things, we lose effectiveness. Be efficient with things, effective with people. Manage things, lead people. So Tanya, your mentor is right. That's a better way in our world. And the moment we start to manage people like things, we'll also end up with no people and a lot of things because they'll go elsewhere to where they feel trusted and inspired.
And
I love
actually, they're doing that now,
they're doing
right?
it
Like,
now.
so right with the Great Resignation, it's been a wake up call for a lot of companies, right? The pandemic has been what my friend Mita Malik calls a great awakening for workers, right? They're looking for companies where trust is an integral part of the company and their values. And they no longer want to work for toxic bosses and companies that do not lead with a moral compass. So your book is so timely because employees are looking for trust. They're looking to be inspired. What can companies learn from trust and inspire? You know, in your book, you talk about the old model of command and control, and that we need to create systems that are built around trust and inspire. For those that haven't, read the book, what are the key differences between command and control? And you kind of mentioned it just now, but like if you can dig a little bit deeper,
Yeah.
and why is trust and simple the new and better model?
Yeah. So command and control, I manage people and things. Trust and inspire, I manage things, I lead people. Command and control, the focus is on compliance. A good thing. Trust and inspire, it's on commitment, doing the right thing, not just following the rules. Higher level includes compliance, but so much more. Command and control is, I'll achieve coordination among groups or silos, but trust and inspire enables me to truly collaborate among teams. Someone mentioned that without trust, there's no collaboration.
Mhm.
You might have coordination, but really trust is the ultimate collaboration tool. Command and control, by definition, it's about controlling people, containing. Trust and inspire is about releasing and unleashing the capabilities, the talents, the potential that's so important. I like to look at it this way. Command and control is like a mechanistic mindset. I'm a machinist. Trust and inspire, it's an organic. I see myself as a gardener, as a leader. I'm a gardener. I'm trying to create the conditions for the seed to flourish. The power, the life is in the seed. My job as a gardener is create the conditions for the seed to flourish. Whereas with command and control, I see myself as, the force and not the people. It's about me, not about them. So trust and inspire is all about them. This is your whole idea of servant leadership, man. I'm serving. I'm a gardener. I'm creating conditions for the people to flourish. Maybe one last distinction. Command and control tends to be about motivation, and that's external. It's extrinsic. So I have carrot and stick type motivation. More carrots, more sticks. Does it work? Sure. It motivates people to want to get more rewards. But you got to constantly kind of externally feed this, more stimuli, more carrots, more sticks. Trust and inspire, by contrast, is about inspiration. It's intrinsic, it's internal, it's inside of people. To inspire means to breathe life into. So I breathe life into relationships, into teams, into cultures, into organizations. And whereas command and control sucks the life out of. So I breathe life into, I inspire. And that can live on for months, if not years, when people have that fire lit within them, the fire within. And so I think that this is just a far more relevant way to lead in our world today, in a world where people don't want to be managed. They want to be led. They want to be trusted. They want to be inspired. So I'll go back to David's comment. I saw that he said that his favorite boss so far, David Hansen, is the boss that said, I trust you. And what that does to a person is when they feel trusted, because he also said that he meant it. He didn't just throw it out gratuitously. I trust you, and he meant it. What that does is people feel inspired by that. They want to live up to that trust. They actually become more trustworthy. They rise to the occasion. They perform better. They develop capabilities. And guess what? They also reciprocate and return the trust. It becomes a beautiful, virtuous upward spiral of trust and confidence, creating more trust and confidence. So as leaders, we need to become more trusting because of our people that we lead. I'll bet each of us, like David, could identify a person in your life who you would describe as a trust and inspire person in your life. Maybe they were a leader, maybe someone at work, maybe someone in the community, maybe someone in your home, a coach, a mentor, a friend, family member, clergy, someone who believed in you, who had confidence in you, who maybe believed in you more than you believed in yourself, who trusted and inspired you. Think about that person or persons and what that did to you. I'll bet, like David, it brought out the very best in you.
Love that. And, talk about David again. He has another great quote here in the comments. We would have so much more passion for our work if we had a shared, inspiring vision, and if we were trusted and empowered to carry out our mission. And then Bridget, that's what the Great Resignation is all about. People are no longer accepting business as usual. And Leanne, trust builds believers in their leadership, not just followers. And once again, Bridget again, command and control, corporations ordering employees back to the office, walking back the promise of allowing employees to work remotely. Trust is broken. And lastly, Malheur reminds me of this quote, which I treasure: to be trusted is a greater compliment than being loved. George MacDonald.
Beautiful.
So
love those comments, all of them.
Yes, and this conversation is so powerful. I mean, and as I mentioned early, so timely. We have a lot of leaders, Stephen, who are on this call. We have some that are CEOs, some that are in the C-suite. We have some people who are looking for their next opportunity. We also have sometimes we also have college students, but this is a global audience. So we have people everywhere from Africa to Asia to Australia to Europe and the US. How does one become a trust and inspire leader? Like what
Yeah.
There's no trust and inspire school, and I know for sure I did not learn it at Stanford or Harvard. So how do you learn to be a trust and inspire leader?
It's a wonderful question, Len, because we've all been immersed in a world of command and control. And we're like fish who discover water last. We're so immersed in it, we're not often even aware. But think about it, it's in our language, it's in our systems and our structures and our processes, where it's a command and control world still, even though it's become better, a more enlightened command and control. But, span of control, chain of command, rank and file, even our language, we fill out evaluations and we have our high potentials. What does that say about everybody else? We only see some as having greatness, not everyone, and on and on and on. So we've got to become intentional and deliberate about this. And part of it is with self-awareness, is to recognize that our mentors, our models, so much of what we've seen has been too much around command and control. So we have to be intentional and deliberate and make a break with command and control leadership. Most breakthroughs are break withs, the traditional approach. And the traditional approach is in enlightened command and control today. We got to break with that towards trust and inspire. So how do we become it? I'll give two key principles. The first is it starts with our mindset, our paradigm, the fundamental beliefs of how we view people and how we view leadership. Because if you want to change behavior, first change your paradigm. You can't act with integrity outside of your paradigm. So we got to make sure our mindset is more expansive of how we view people, how we view leadership. So let me give an example. A trust and inspire leader starts from the premise of, I believe people have greatness inside of them. A growth mindset, not just for yourself, but for everyone. The people have greatness inside of them. Not just some, not just the high potentials, but everyone. In a sense, everyone could be a high potential. So I believe people have greatness inside of them. Whereas command and control is some people might have greatness, but most don't. Find those that do. That's a limited mindset. So then if you buy the belief that everyone has greatness inside of them, then my job as a leader is to unleash their potential, not to try to contain or control them. Another belief about people, I believe that people are whole people, body, heart, mind, spirit, not just economic beings. So if I buy that belief, my job as a leader is to inspire, not merely motivate. If people were just economic beings, then motivation would be sufficient. But they're whole people. They bring their whole self to work. The personal, professional, they're integrated, the body, the heart, the mind, the spirit. So that they want to be inspired, not just motivated, and so forth. I could go, there's beliefs like this. You start with the mindset of how you view people and how you view leadership. I'll give you one mindset on leadership, that there is enough for everyone, an abundance mentality. So if you buy that, then my job as a leader is to elevate caring above competing. But if I have a scarcity mentality, then, I set up competitive systems within the workplace. Now, look, let's compete in the marketplace, but let's collaborate and care within the workplace. But it starts with an abundance mentality. Scarcity might be good economic theory, but scarcity is lousy leadership theory and practice. Abundance is far better. And leadership is stewardship. So it starts with the mindset of how I view people, how I view leadership, and then moves into the stewardships, the actions, the things that we do. So I'll pause on that before I go into the stewardships and maybe take some more questions, but I'll make sure I talk about the stewardships at some point, the things that we do as leaders. But it starts first with our mindsets, how we view people, how we view leadership, our map, our mental map of the world, our paradigm, to make sure it's accurate to the territory, to the reality.
That's so powerful. The one thing that it came up to my head while you were speaking, because it's so beautiful and I think it's so needed. But I think of Peter Drucker's quote, "What gets measured gets managed," and I kind of paraphrase it: "What gets managed, what gets measured gets done." How do we measure trust? How do we measure inspiration? And I think that's one reason why corporations, I won't say don't value it, but if you look at corporate America today, people aren't hired because of trust. And even though it's probably the most important thing, being able to inspire, being able to trust, it's more based on how much, as a salesperson, how much did you sell? Or as a marketer, what were the results? How do we make this trust and inspiration something that we could measure so that it can be elevated in corporate America?
Yeah, these are important points you're bringing up, man, because we tend to measure what matters, and then we tend to focus on that. The reality is you actually can measure trust. Trust is a perception. You can measure perceptions through anonymous surveys. Think about it. We've been measuring engagement now for 20 years. We've gotten good at this. You can also measure trust, the perception of the level of trust that people have in leaders or in a team, the confidence that they have. You can measure not only the level, but also the components of it. Why? Because it's one thing if they say there's lower trust because of a lack of integrity. That's one kind of issue. But what if there's lower trust because a lack of results? We're not delivering, we're not performing, or lower trust because we have self-serving intent instead of seeking mutual benefit and so forth. So why the trust is what it is also important as the level. The point is, though, you can actually measure trust. And I think, well, let me ask our audience this question. How many of you, with either you, with your organization, or with clients that you're working with or serving, how many today are you measuring engagement in some way, shape, or form? Raise hands. Okay, most hands. Let me ask this question. 20 years ago, how many were measuring engagement? Far less, but a few started. Okay, let me ask this about trust. How many today of you, either you or your organization or your clients, are systematically measuring trust? Okay, there's a few. That's a lot more than there were 10 years ago.
And probably because of your work.
Well, I hope so. But my prediction is, in the same way that engagement went from a few to almost everyone, I think you're going to find 10 years from now, most everybody measuring trust because of how important it is, how predictive it is, how explanatory it is. I think this is where it's going. You can measure trust. You can also measure inspiration. And here's interesting. There's data from Bain and Company that shows inspired employees, yes, they're clearly more productive than merely satisfied employees, 125% more productive than satisfied employees. But guess what? Inspired employees are even 56% more productive than engaged employees. In other words, there's another level of engagement. It's inspiration. I believe this: inspiration is the new engagement. Inspiration is the next frontier of engagement. To build a high trust culture that inspires. That's how we'll win the war for talent. That's how we'll attract and retain the best people and bring out the best in people in this time of the great resignation, the great reawakening, a high trust culture that inspires. So we can do this. We can get good at this. This is where leadership is going. It's moving from command and control to trust and inspire in all its forms, including in being able to measure it. And you're going to see this being the differentiator for the leaders of the future. And this being how we look at leadership is really to be able to trust and inspire, bring out the best in people, create the conditions for them to succeed, as opposed to just kind of the old traditional manage people.
Amen. I am sold. Sign me up. So, Stephen, in part 3 of your book, you talk about the common barriers to becoming a trusted, inspired leader. One of my favorites was, well, that's how we've always done it. What are some of the biggest barriers, and how can the leaders on this call overcome them in the pursuit of becoming trusted, inspired leaders and transforming their companies to do the same?
Yes, I because this is so common still, that we're still operating in a command and control world, even if it's to become enlightened command and control. I really spent a lot of time on overcoming the barriers that prevent us from becoming trust and inspire. I think the biggest barrier in becoming a trust and inspire leader is that we think we already are one. And so we think, yeah, well, I'm not command and control, and therefore I must be trust and inspire. But maybe we are parts of it, and maybe at times we are. But how would those that we work with collaborate? Would they view us as trust and inspire? And are we trust and inspire when the pressure is on, and when the deadlines are tight? And so I like to make this point that the opposite of command and control is not trust and inspire. The opposite of command and control is abdicate and abandon. That's going to I'm not leading at all. Trust and inspire is a third alternative. If command and control is excessively hands-on, abdicate and abandon is excessively hands-off. Trust and inspire is hand in hand. You can be authoritative without being authoritarian. You can be in charge and in control without being controlling. You do it through an agreement. So here's 3 key things to overcome these barriers, because the barriers include, I'm already there. They include, well, this is a good idea, but it won't work here. Not in my company, not with my boss, or not in my industry. We're a compliance regulated industry. It's all command and control. Or, hey, I'm afraid to do this. I tried it. It didn't work. Or I've been burned before. Or what if it doesn't work? I don't know. Or I don't know how to let go. Or kind of, this is who I am. This is my identity. You're asking me to change. All these things, they're all barriers. But I'm making this point. You can rescript. We can find models who become mentors. We can become a model who can become a mentor of a better way to lead in a new world of work. The fact that we've been trained or scripted in command and control doesn't mean we stay there. We can become, trust, and inspire. And here's the 3 stewardships, the 3 things we do. It's very simple. We model, we trust, and we inspire. See, trust and inspire are verbs. It's what we do. So modeling, that's who we are. It's our credibility. It's our moral authority. And we go first. The job of a leader is to go first. Leaders go first. We model the behavior. We model the values. We model authenticity and vulnerability and make it safe for others to do the same. Modeling is first. Second, trusting. You could have 2 trustworthy people working together and no trust between them, even though they're both trustworthy. So we got to extend the trust. We got to be trusting of people. Not only do we have to be trustworthy to have trust, we have to be trusting. That's the greater need. Become more trusting. Tell the people that you trust them and why you trust them. Build an agreement together with expectations and accountability, and then extend that trust abundantly. When they're not quite ready, then do a little bit. The point is, you're always trying to extend more trust because people respond to being trusted. And then finally, inspiring. We can actually inspire others. It's not just for the charismatic. Inspiring others is a learnable skill. Everyone can inspire. And you inspire when you model, you inspire when you trust people. To be trusted is the most inspiring form of motivation. But you also inspire when you connect with people through caring and belonging. Just demonstrating that you care inspires people. And when you connect people to purpose, to meaning, and to contribution, that will inspire people. The point is, everyone can inspire. It's a learnable skill, and it is a stewardship, a responsibility we have as leaders to inspire those that we lead. That's a paradigm shift, the idea that everyone can inspire. It's learnable.
I love that. Before I ask you the last question, for folks who are on this call or even watching on live stream, if you have a question, let me know in the comments or raise your hand, use the emoticon. So we're going to be opening it out. You guys can actually ask your question to Stephen soon. So the last chapter of Trust and Inspire, Stephen, is about the types of leadership this type of leadership applies not only to corporate America, but also in parenting, teaching, coaching, and relationships. And I did not know that about 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, about it, or leaders, about it being kind of part of your family principles. So it just makes so much more sense now. I was talking to a friend about how much you and your father have inspired my thought on leadership. And it made me remember before I went into marketing and before as an entrepreneur, I was actually a teacher. One of my first jobs was to create a teaching curriculum for this urban school in Hayward, California. And there was literally a classroom of kids that were the forgotten kids. And I remembered I incorporated the lessons from your father's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, into the curriculum. To make a long story short, the kids thrived. In schools, we don't teach kids how to learn. We don't teach kids how to think critically and how to prepare them to be successful. We expect them to just know that when obviously they don't. And I think that's what it was so powerful about what both you and your father have left to the world in the realm of leadership. And it really digs into the heart of what's really important. It's about the intangible emotional intelligence needed to succeed that are often not valued, right? Even though it is probably the most important thing in leadership, right? And I believe they supersede any hard skills that are often focused and touted in business school. Tell us more about how we can use trust and inspire in our homes, in our communities, in our relationships.
Wonderful, Len. Thanks for bringing that up. This is maybe my favorite part of the book is I call it trust and inspire in any context. The key to becoming a trust and inspire leader is to first become a trust and inspire person, friend, neighbor, parent, aunt, uncle, you know, community member. That this is how we live and lead our lives. As I've seen some in the chat, leadership is not a position. Leadership is a choice, not a position. Everyone can lead wherever you're at. And you can even lead your boss in a sense, because from the standpoint of that it's intentional, enduring influence. It's inside out. It starts with each of us. And we can all lead in whatever role we are in our lives. And I think the greatest leadership takes place in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our communities. We need that in a low trust world and in a world that's low in inspiration. We need examples. We need models of trust and inspire leadership in a command and control world. We need models who can become mentors. A mentor is a model with a relationship. And so what if you could model that, become it for maybe you start in your own home or in your neighborhood. Maybe you start on your team. Maybe you're not the team leader, but you're a team member and you start with you as a leader of your team as a team member by the leadership you're providing, by your modeling, by going first. That's the point, is that we don't have to wait on anybody else. We can become trust and inspire. We can give a model of how they can do it in our company when everyone says this is a command and control industry. And then we become a trust and inspire leader and team, getting results in a way that grows the people, getting results in a way that inspires trust. And then people say, how are they doing it? And they learn from you. They see a model, become a mentor. You ripple out. It's inside out. The ripple effect. Drop water comes down. It starts with each of us, self to relationship, to team, to organization, to partners, stakeholders, to society, inside out, like the ripple effect rippling out. So we all look in the mirror. So I give two invitations to all of us to think about that you can do from the inside out, because not everyone around you is going to be trust and inspire. There's going to be a lot of command and control, but you can be the model of it. So here's my invitations. The first is I asked each of you to identify a trust and inspire person in your life, like David did, his favorite boss to date, told him, I trust you, and meant it. So think of the trust and inspire person in your life, family member, friend, neighbor, leader, mentor, coach, clergy, whatever, someone that believed in you, had confidence in you, trusted and inspired you. And I bet you have more than one, but think of at least one. And what that did to you, how that changed you, how that really transformed you, how you responded to it. My first invitation is, would you make the effort to thank that person? Go back and thank that person. So David, go back and thank that favorite boss to date. Others, go and thank the person and say, hey, we went through a session, talked about trust and inspire, and Stephen asked us to identify someone. I thought of you. When you thank them, you'll be amazed at what that does to them, but also to you. So that's my first invitation. My second invitation is, for whom might you become such a trust and inspire person in someone else's life? Identify at least one relationship of a person in your life, either personal or professional, where you say, you know what? I'd like to become a trust and inspire person for this individual, and show and give them confidence, help to see and to communicate their potential, their talent, their greatness so clearly that they come to see it in themselves. help them develop it, help them unleash it. What if, just like someone did this for you, what if you could do this for another? And my point is, by having just focus on one, it's not trying to say you got to become trust inspire perfectly all the time. It's saying, I can do it with one. And if you can do it with one, you can do it with another, and then with another. This will give you a path forward in becoming a trust and inspire leader. And then I hope you'll find that the book will give you a mindset, a skill set, and a tool set to really become trust and inspire, even in a command and control world. We need this kind of leadership in our world today. We need to help bring about a renaissance of trust and inspiration. And I'm looking at the catalysts. They're going to help us do it.
I love that. I am so inspired right now. You cannot even imagine, Stephen. One of the things I always say to my community is that we are all like raindrops. What we do seems small and inconsequential, but when we come together, we become the ocean. And it's this oceans that create ripples and the ripples that create waves. And that's how revolutions and changes happens. And you are the catalyst. I think of you and your father. Like I think about how many books I've given to other people, but it becomes this tidal wave of other people really changing leadership, changing how we see things, and it just starts with one person. That's so powerful. Question from Jason Springer. Jason, do you want to unmute and ask your question? Okay, so I'll ask his question, and he just says, "How do you break through to people? Like, I guess in the corporate world, because a lot of times it's like talking to the wall. How do you break through to get these kind of ideas that trust and inspiration is important, and how do you break through these walls? Because there is a corporate wall, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times leaders aren't listening, or even when you think about those anonymous reviews or whatnot, people aren't necessarily reading them or using the data. I mean, I think of exit interviews. It's very rare that it goes past HR and into the C-suite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just say this: go first. Someone needs to go first. Leaders go first. So even if it's with your boss, go first. If you want more transparency, be the first to model transparency. You want to see more respect, be the first to demonstrate respect. You want more understanding, be the first to empathize, to show empathy. And in terms of really breaking through to another, it's all about connection. And if you can demonstrate caring, concern, care, even love, but at a minimum, genuine caring that you care, people tend to respond to that, be inspired by that. And it's like the expression goes, we all know it. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. So caring is such a way. So between caring and empathy, understanding, another way to say it is compassion and empathy. Those are powerful ways of, in difficult places, breaking through. And then if you go first, if you model, because the more credible you are, the more clout, the more influence, the more of a platform you'll have to say we need a different way to lead. So if I'm getting results and the engagement scores on my team are off the charts, my credibility is sky high. That gives me clout, courage, a platform, permission to even have hard conversations to say, hey, I think there might be a better way we can go about doing this. That's what I mean by going first. You be the model and go first. And so the people say, wow, this is a better way to lead. But then at a personal level, show that you care and go for listening. Even with a boss, try to understand. Let's say you have a boss that doesn't trust you or anybody. Rather than go to the boss and saying, hey, what's wrong with you? You don't trust people. Instead, go and say, what could I do to be the kind of person that you can rely upon, count upon? Because I want to be that kind of person for you. I want to earn my right. I'm not asking you to just give it. I want to earn that right. See, I made it not about what's wrong with you, boss, but what can I do to become this kind of person for you? They might resist at first, but that's a tremendous offer. You're asking to earn that right, not just to be given it. Over time, you're sincere about this. They might say, well, I need to make sure it gets done. And I need to make sure I hear back. And I'm very detail oriented. And you might say, okay, so what if I'll do this and I'll report right back right away. And the point is, you become that kind of person for your boss. And you might find that the boss that can't trust anyone starts to learn that they can trust you. And maybe if they do it with one, they could maybe learn to do it with another. You can actually help your boss change, become better. So this can work at any level. It's inside out. Let's all look in the mirror.
This conversation has so inspired me. I know you have back-to-back meetings, so I just want to be, like interviews and stuff. So I want to be sensitive to your time. So besides buying right now, I put the link in the chat, Trust and Inspire hardcover, buy it today. How else can we help you? We can go to speedoftrust.com.
Yes.
How else? Follow you on LinkedIn. How else can we help?
Follow me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram at Stephen M. R. Covey. And I'd love it if you bought the book, and if you love it, write a review like Lan suggested. That's
Make sure you write a review, because this really helps authors out. If you want to support your author, don't just buy the book. Make sure you comment, feedback, tell a friend, buy it for your coworkers, your teams, etc. Everyone, you know the deal. Put this in gallery mode so we should see everyone. Turn on your videos. For those who are in the live Zoom audience, turn on your videos, turn on your mute, because Stephen deserves a round of applause. That was so inspiring. Come on, everyone. Woo! Stephen, thank you so much. Stephen, I really mean it. You are one of my heroes, and you have changed so many lives. You and your father. I joked around with you in the beginning. I feel like I'm kind of like part of the Covey family, even though you've never met me before this. But you've inspired so many people. So thank you so much, and keep on doing your good work. This will be my new rotation, sending it out to friends and family. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for making it. One more round of applause for Stephen. Woo!
Thank you so much, Lan. Thank you, everyone. And you are part of the family, all of you. Let's bring about a renaissance of trust together.
Let's do it. Let's do it.